Hello, hello. I am just getting everything set up. Here we go. Okay, looks like I'm live on both Instagram now and Facebook. So just to give you a heads up, I'm going in live in two places. So you might see me looking off camera, and that's because I'm looking at, I don't have a fancy setup. So I have my phone next to my computer where I'm going live, and I'm also going live on my phone. So I hope that everyone can hear me all right. And I'm gonna just dive into this training. And I also will say I'm not very good at multitasking. So I probably won't be reading the comments while I'm teaching, but I will at the end of this go back and read and see if there are any questions that anyone had and just make sure that I've answered your questions. So today's live, okay, I have my notes up for me so that I don't miss the points I want to talk about. But today I'm going to be talking to you guys about the 3 biggest mistakes that hikers tend to make as they transition into multi-night backpacking, and like how to embrace your newbie status. So for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Allison, and I am a backpacking educator and an empowerment coach. And I'm also the founder of She Dreams of Alpine, which is an outdoor adventure blog, and the creator of the coaching program called Become an Outdoor Backpacking Badass, which teaches women how to become safe, confident, and self-sufficient in the outdoors so that they can go on to live and fulfill their biggest adventure dreams without waiting on someone else to help them make it come true. So that's who I am. And as I mentioned, today I want to talk to you guys about the 3 biggest mistakes that hikers tend to make as they transition into multi-night backpacking and how you can avoid these mistakes. Plus, we are going to be talking about how to embrace your sort of newbie status, especially if you're a new backpacker, and talking about how you can be both new to this hobby, this passion, and you can also be safe, confident, and self-sufficient. So those 2 can coexist, and I want to talk a little bit about that today. So let's dive in. Mistake number 1. So mistake number 1 that new hikers tend to make as they transition into multi-night backpacking is not having an understanding of what their body is capable of. So let's dive into that. There are definitely some similarities between hiking and backpacking, but a big difference between hiking, day hiking in particular, and backpacking is the toll on your body that it can take compared to most day hikes. So for example, day hiking, you have a less heavy bag, which I'm sure seems obvious, but like you go from carrying like 5 to 10 pounds on your back during a day hike with your essentials to carrying upwards of 25 to 35 pounds on your back with backpacking, ideally. And sometimes people, when they first start out, they carry even more weight than that because they just are carrying too much gear. So you really need to understand how that's going to impact you and how your body's going to feel carrying extra weight like that. The other thing you need to understand is that mileage and gain like go hand in hand together to create a difficulty of a hike. So when we go out on a day hike, it's easier sometimes because we're not doing back-to-back days. But when we go on and venture off on multi-night backpacking trips, this is something we really need to consider, like what are like piecing that together in a way that makes sense for what we've trained for, what we're prepared for, so that we don't get ourselves into a pickle. Because our objective every trip we hit the trails is to go out and come back safely without reliance on other people to rescue us from that situation. And then also like there's like that mental grit aspect of it that's different than day hiking. So multi-night backpacking trips take a lot of mental training as well because it's not always just a good time. I think they take more like mental grit training than day hiking because you sometimes are having to endure day after day, just sometimes pain and challenges. It's not always going to be a great backpacking trip. Of course, you can like mitigate some of these things before you go out, but like it's inevitable. And that's kind of the beautiful part of backpacking too, is the challenge and the ups and the downs kind of make it like the experience really great. But it's something that I think is important to work on as a hiker to get prepared for honing in on your mental grit and what that looks like. So that's why like one of the first things that we do in the Backpacking Badass program is we teach you how to create a training plan. So that will help you transition and prepare your body and your mind for your goal from day hiking into backpacking. So for example, like, and then as you grow in your backpacking and adventuring goals outdoors, like this training and preparing your body, this skill set of learning what that's like and how to prepare for it and how to like create a training plan properly for it, that will aid you as you grow as a backpacker or outdoorsy person. For example, I've been personally training for a big hike across the rim to rim in a day. And I've been training for that since January to get my body physically and mentally prepared for that challenge so that when I go out and do it, I'm not worried about like, can I do it? I kind of know what to expect. I've been training for it and doing it a long time. So this alone gives me like so much confidence to go out and do that 24-mile hike without really thinking about it. And so that's something you will need to really think about as you transition. So training is crucial, especially as you go on into multi-day hikes. I think it's fun too, because you can plan day hikes, like fun day hikes, to help you begin training for your bigger goals, whatever they are. And the important thing is on these training hikes, start paying attention to these things that you might have not paid attention to before. Things like your recovery. So how sore are you afterwards? Does it take you a long time to recover? What's your pace like? I think it's good, like even like pace it doesn't matter. Like I'm not saying you have to be fast or slow, but it's nice knowing like what is your pace and even tracking it. And that way you can kind of plan ahead. You know, for a backpacking trip with X miles and X gain, you know that might take you so many hours to do. And especially if days are shorter or longer, you can plan accordingly. And that's just good knowledge to have in the back of your head. Pay attention to your energy. And one of the things that like we like to talk to our students and like people that are going on trips with us, it's like testing out different foods that fuel you and work for you, because everyone is different. So when you're on your training hikes, like that's a really good time to play around with fueling your body. And one of the recommendations I like to give is like, if you're going to be hiking for hours and hours and hours, is try to eat something regularly, like 200 calories-ish at least every hour, just to keep your body like fueled. And even if you're not feeling hungry, because it will just hit you, like that low energy will just hit you if you're not doing that properly. Also pay attention to things like blisters. So like on your day hikes, before you go into backpacking, like, are you getting a lot of hot spots, and how can you try to mitigate those so for a multi-night trip, you're not feeling miserable with blisters the whole time? So yeah, I mean, that's like the biggest thing. Like a lot of people I think underestimate is the differences required in feeling ready for your trip or planning an appropriate trip for your body, like what you're ready for as you transition into multi-night backpacking from day hiking. Okay, so that was mistake number one. Mistake number two, and I kind of alluded to this already, is packing way too much gear than you actually need. So I know that this sounds obvious, but it's a classic beginner mistake. And I totally understand why, and I can 100% relate to this. My very first backpacking trip back in 2013, I think my pack weighed like 45 pounds, and it was like a one-night trip, and it definitely shouldn't have weighed anywhere near that much weight. So I won't get into all the details of that, but I was very new and fresh. But to step back, an ideal pack weight for 1 to 3 night trips, and this is being pretty broad because I'm not getting super detailed here. So I'm going to give you a range. And this depends on the kind of gear you have. Is like 25 to 35 pounds. That's what I would shoot for if you're first starting out. And then you can go lighter from there. And like occasionally, if you're doing longer trips, I don't know, there could be reasons it could be heavier, but that's like more ideal range that you have wiggle room in. So this, again, it varies, but this is just me keeping it really simple and giving you a simple range right now. And to put it in comparison, my pack weight for the John Muir Trail, which is a through hike that we did over like 22 days, my backpack with 6 days of food and like 2 liters of water at the time was around 30 pounds. So that means like my pack for shorter trips is much lighter than that. But I have been slowly perfecting my backpack over the last, like, what is that? 2013 to now, like 8 or 9 years. So definitely when you first start out, your pack probably won't be as optimized as that. And that's totally normal. I think that the reason that people find like overloading their packs with too much stuff, like why this is so hard, is because I feel like there's definitely an overwhelming amount of advice on there on like what you should bring or what's essential or what you need, especially if you're going to like blog posts. And me being blogger, like I totally understand, but I think a lot of blog posts go in with the like not necessarily intention of helping you like optimize with what you have, but like showing you gear that you can buy because they're like affiliate commissions, right? Which is nothing wrong with that. But you don't have to start with all the like fanciest gear when you're starting out. You can actually get scrappy and use a lot of what you have to get started. And also everyone has different opinions on gear. So for me, like I like to teach my students basic gear groupings and gear principles and like give them a roadmap of sorts so that they can balance out those like must-have pieces of gear, like safety gear, and those nice to haves. And also like I was mentioning, learning what they can use that they already have to at least get started, get their foot in the door with backpacking. Because I really believe in helping you start sooner than later instead of feeling like paralyzed by the whole gear stuff. I don't think you have to have super fancy gear to get started. So this is just like, I mean, I'm not just saying this, like one of my students, her name's Sherry. She told us that prior to joining our Backpacking Badass program, she had been working on her gear for 2 years and bought a ton of things that she didn't end up liking before she joined. And then when she went through, we have a module in our program called the gear module. And she said that I love this module and the reminders to take my time and work with what I have. So that's what I like to teach. It goes beyond what most blog posts and backpacking gear posts teach. And we also have like a couple resources in there that give you options for your gear in whatever phase you are in as a backpacker so that you can like make it work for you. And then when you want to get super nerdy and really like optimize your pack weight, we also have a tool in there that like helps you calculate all of those things and really optimize it to get it lighter. That's like more important if you're going to be doing like through hiking trips and stuff like that. But we do have a tool in there as well. So wrapping it up, packing too much gear is something you want to keep an eye on when you're first starting backpacking. And also be wary of the advice you read on the internet about what you need or don't need on the trail. Just take it with a grain of salt, see what you can get scrappy with. On the flip side of this, I just wanted to make sure to mention, make sure that the things that you're consuming and the advice you're consuming, like ultralight backpacker is like a type of backpacker where you're really optimizing your weight and you don't really need to start out as an ultralight backpacker. Most people don't, and it's something you can aspire to if you want to, but I wouldn't even call myself like an ultra light backpacker. There's actually technical ranges for this is getting like a little into the nitty gritty, but like what would be considered a light backpacker, ultralight backpacker. Like there's different ranges, and I kind of fall right above the ultralight because ultralight's next level. You're kind of leaving some creature comforts behind. So you kind of got to decide like what type of backpacker that you want to be. And most people don't start out as ultralight, and ultralight gear can be really expensive to start out with. Yeah, so we all start in stages with backpacking. Most of us don't start out with a super optimized kit at first, so just embrace that. And you can start backpacking and then over the years build your perfect kit. Like, for example, I am still optimizing my backpacking gear. One of the things that I recently upgraded in 2021, I bought a Barricade bear can, which is an ultralight bear can, one of the lightest bear cans you can buy out there. But they're expensive, and I did not use that for like the first 8 years of backpacking. I used a cheaper, like $30 used bear can for my I still have it because we have two now. Michael sometimes will use the other one and I'll use the Barricade, but I just got that. And I've been backpacking for a long time now. So Rome wasn't built in a day. And I don't want gear to be the thing that keeps you stuck from getting started. Okay, so the third mistake that hikers tend to make as they transition into multi-night backpacking is relying on others for their safety. So this is personally one of the things that I think most people make the mistake of, is not taking ownership of their own personal safety on the trail, and instead really relying on other more experienced people to like hold up the reins of this. And I get it, like I really do. And I did it. When I first started backpacking, nothing like we teach in our program existed in the way it does that we do it. And I also didn't know any better because I was fresh from Texas, never done anything outdoorsy. If you guys know my story, I've talked about that before. But my first backpacking trip in 2013, I basically knew nothing about my personal limits on the trail, or how to respond to animal encounters, or how to prepare for bad weather scenarios, or how to navigate and not get lost. I literally just went in blindly, trusting my companions who were actually also pretty new to backpacking themselves. And honestly, we got lucky. We had a great trip. Everything went smoothly. But after that trip, I had this realization, because I like fell in love with it. And I was like, oh my gosh, that was so fun. But then I also just sat back and I was thinking how risky that could have been. Like, not knowing any of these things. I had all these questions when I got back. Like, I didn't know any of these things for myself. Like, what would I have done if I had gotten separated from my group? And what would I have done if I had gotten lost, or my group had gotten lost, or turned around, or took a wrong turn? Like, what would I have done? Did I even have the things that I needed to be safe? What did I need? I didn't know. You don't know what you don't know, that kind of thing. I didn't know how to pivot if things didn't go according to plan. Like, I hadn't thought about any of those things that first backpacking trip. So after that trip, like, I wanted to do more of this, but I definitely made it my mission to not hit the trail without having that confidence in myself with those things and those questions. And now that is what we teach. And that's what we teach our students, like how they can feel confident when they hit the trail, that they know what to do when things don't go according to plan. And they're able to go in confidently knowing that they have the tools to pivot and be safe, because the backcountry is unpredictable. A lot of times you make a plan and those plans change on the fly, and you need to be prepared. It's not something to be overly scared of, but it's something that you want to be prepared for. So here's an example from one of our students. We recently had a student graduate our program. Graduation, we just call graduation when somebody like goes through our program and then goes on their first trip. It doesn't have to be their first trip ever, but like their first trip after completing the program. Anyway, she graduated and she wrote us in her story. Her name's Jessica. And she told us for her first goal trip, she was signed up to do a guided adventure, actually, to go with guides. But that she wrote that she didn't want to be reliant on the guides to feel safe on that trip. And this is like something she actually wrote. She said, "We were so well prepared and I had no trouble on the journey at all. I was able to successfully navigate our trip alongside the guides, and I felt in control were we to ever get separated from the group at any point." And that is like exactly the kind of energy and like being self-sufficientness that I'm talking about here. And so this is also just goes to my point. You can be new to backpacking and also prepared for its challenges and risks without having to be reliant on a group of other experienced backpackers by your side. You can totally hit the trail knowing you have your own back before you venture out on your first trip. You just have to do a little bit of learning up front and preparing for that. And yeah, and then with that confidence, you can go into your backpacking trips and start stacking your experience and your learning journey, and you're just going to continue to grow as a backpacker from there. We all started out as newbies. I mean, like none of us start out experienced, but we don't have to walk into backpacking blindly or fully reliant on other people. So there's a difference between being new and being unsafe, and that's exactly why I teach what I teach, to help you make that journey more seamless and enjoyable and with less like fear and hesitation and overwhelm. So yes, that's my 3 mistakes. So the 3, just to quickly recap, were the 3 mistakes that hikers tend to make as they transition into multi-night backpacking was not understanding their body and what they're capable of, and packing too much gear, and being too reliant on others for their safety and not taking ownership of their safety. So that is what we talked about today. If you're just joining us a little bit late, you can go back and watch the replay. It's going to be posted here very soon. And that's it. That's all that I have for today. Let me just say this really quick, and then I'll hop in and see if there were any questions or comments. If you want to take these concepts that I started introducing to you today a step further, definitely make sure you download my Outdoor Backpacker Starter Kit, which is something we just updated and released last week. It's filled with 14 pages of my best hiking and backpacking tips to help you learn what it actually takes to become safe, confident, and self-sufficient in the outdoors. You can grab that starter kit at shedreamsofalpine.com/adventure. So I'll say that again, shedreamsofalpine.com/adventure. And that will take you to the page where you can download the freebie there. Let's see. Let me just chime in and see if there were any major comments. I know it's like the middle of the day, so there might not be very many. So I will come back and check on this. Let's see. Cindy said, "Very cool. I worked for the Forest Service in the 90s and lived outside for months at a time. I just winged it. I wish I could have taken a course like yours." Like I felt the same way. Like when I got started, I'm like, how do I even get started? It was a long journey. I don't know how to like search comments on Instagram because it tells you everyone who joined, so you kind of lose the comments. But here's what I do. If you guys do have a question, you can pop it into the comments and I will try to comb through them after the fact. On Instagram, you might have to do that on the post. I don't know what your name is, but if your Instagram name is showing up, Zwickia, how can I take your course? So we are opening enrollment in June, on June 7th. That's our next open enrollment of our program. So if you want to make sure you don't miss that, you can hop on our waitlist at shedreamsofalpine.com/waitlist. Very simple. If you want the starter kit, shedreamsofalpine.com/adventure. If you want to hop onto the waitlist, shedreamsofalpine.com/waitlist. And that will also show you a little bit more information about our program and like where you can learn more information about that. But thanks so much for being here, everyone. I hope that you enjoyed this workshop. I'm actually going to be doing several live videos over the next month or so as we gear up for our open enrollment in June, for our signature program, Become an Outdoor Backpacking Badass. I mentioned this already. It opens June 7th, so mark your calendars. And yeah, I'll see you next week for another one. And next week, we're going to be talking about, this is one of my favorite workshops. I've done it before, so I'm excited to do it again. But we're going to be talking about how to turn your fear into your superpower. And it will come with a freebie guide that you can download and take with you. So this is like a tool that I've created for our students, but I'm going to share it with you next week. So I hope that you can be there. It'll be the same time, same place as this one was. So thank you guys so much for being here. And now I'm going to log out and talk to you soon.